The Duchess of Sussex arrived hand in hand with her husband.
It went so well.
Because when girls are given the right tools to succeed, they can create incredible futures.
The work that they were doing, the speeches, the people they were meeting, like, it seemed to be amazing. And then I don't understand what happened after that.
I think Australia was a real turning point because they were so popular with the public. The internals at the palace were incredibly threatened by that.
Putting aside what I think about her, right? She's becoming a royal rock star. Bigger, I would argue, as a couple than William and Kate. That's probably not a good thing in the long term.
The issue is when someone who's marrying in, who should be a supporting act, is then stealing the limelight or is doing the job better than the person who's born to do this. That upsets people. It shifts the balance. Before we left, I spoke to my grandmother as well and told her that we're coming back on the 6th and I would love to come and drive up and come and see you. She knew that we were finding things hard. I'd spoken to her many times about it. She told me that she had no plans for the week. And she said, well, why don't you come up and then you have tea? Why don't you stay the night, you and Meghan?
So we were flying back from Vancouver straight to Heathrow. And so right as we're getting on the plane, this urgent message comes through to H saying, you are not allowed to go and see Her Majesty. Make sure that your principal is aware. He cannot go and see her. And she's busy. She has plans all week.
I was like, well, that's certainly the opposite to what she had told me. Once we were back in the UK, I rang her and I said, I'm now told that you're busy. She goes, yes, I didn't know that I was busy. I've been told that I'm busy. I've actually been told that I'm busy all week. I was like, wow.
And I remember looking at H, thinking, my gosh, this is when a family and a family business are in direct conflict. Because they're blocking you from seeing the Queen, but really what they're doing is blocking a grandson from seeing his grandmother.
Later that afternoon, we found out that the story was coming out. Somehow the tabloids knew about this proposal.
I think we've all known for a while that the couple have been very unhappy and have been struggling with their public role in the royal family.
And his dad said, put it in writing. And he didn't. It was just 5 days later that it was on the front page of a newspaper.
There's a lot of speculation that perhaps Canada, which is where Meghan lived before marrying into the royal family.
It became clear that the institution leaked the fact that we were going to move back to Canada, and the key piece of that story that made me aware that the contents of the letter between me and my father had been leaked was that we were willing to relinquish our Sussex titles. That was the giveaway. And I was like, wow. Like, our story, our life, literally got taken from underneath us.
I had to get back because Archie was in Canada.
And it was only once Meg had left and gone back to Canada that it was then arranged that there was going to be a meeting at Sandringham on the following Monday.
Imagine a conversation, a roundtable discussion about the future of your life when the stakes are this high, and you as the mom and the wife and the target in many regards aren't invited to have a seat at the table.
It was clear to me that they planned it so that you weren't in the room. Once I got there, I was given 5 options. 1 being all in, no change. 5 being all out. I chose option 3 in the meeting, half in, half out. Have our own jobs, but also work in support of the Queen. But it became very clear very quickly that that goal was not up for discussion or debate. It was terrifying to have my brother scream and shout at me, and my father say things that just simply weren't true, and my grandmother, quietly sit there and sort of take it all in. But you have to understand that from the family's perspective, especially from hers, there are ways of doing things, and her ultimate sort of mission, goal / responsibility is the institution. People around her are telling her, by the way, that proposal or these two doing X, Y, Z is going to be seen as an attack on the institution, then she's going to go on the advice that she's given. It was really hard. The meeting finished without any solidified action plan. I think from their perspective, they had to believe that it was more about us and maybe the issues that we had, as opposed to their partner, the media, and themselves in that relationship that was causing so much pain for us. They saw what they wanted to see. I mean, the saddest part of it was this wedge created between myself and my brother, so that he's now on the institution side. And I get, part of that I understand, right? That's his inheritance. So to some extent, it's already ingrained in him that part of his responsibility is the survivability and the continuation of this institution.
There's been an unbelievably sad breakdown between the brothers.
They always used to be in step, and they're clearly out of step now.
That day, a story came out saying that part of the reason why Meghan and I were leaving was because William had bullied us out. And once I got in the car after the meeting, I was told about a joint statement that had been put up in my name and my brother's name, squashing the story about him bullying us out of the family.
A sign of public unity from the brothers, who issued a joint statement calling the report false, offensive, and potentially harmful.
I couldn't believe it. No one had asked me. No one had asked me permission to put my name to a statement like that. And I rang Em and I told her, and she burst into floods of tears, because within 4 hours they were happy to lie to protect my brother, and yet for 3 years they were never willing to tell the truth to protect us.
Suddenly what clicked in my head was, it's never going to stop. Every rumor, every negative thing, every lie, everything that I knew wasn't true and that the palace knew wasn't true and internally they knew wasn't true, that was just being allowed to fester.
So there was no other option at this point.
We're about 2 minutes out from the top of the show, so.
Good afternoon. I want to welcome Renee DeResta, Shad Robinson, and Prince Harry, Duke of Sussex. Well, Harry, maybe you could help humanize this for us. Just a month ago, a report by Bot Sentinel, a company that analyzes tweets, found that a very small number of anti-Meghan and Harry accounts were responsible for a huge percentage of the hateful content about you on Twitter.
Misinformation is a global humanitarian crisis. As you quite rightly pointed out, I've felt it personally over the years. We know that a small group of accounts are allowed to create a huge amount of chaos online, and without any consequence whatsoever.
Bot Signal has looked at everything from QAnon to MAGA to COVID disinformation to climate change disinformation. We've never seen anything quite like this.
What was interesting to me about that report is that it showed that there were a handful of accounts that weren't just bots, but they were people who were highly coordinated and deeply networked and responsible for the vast majority of hate propaganda against the couple.
We looked at 114,000 tweets, and we were able to then determine that 70% of the hateful content came from just 83 accounts, and they had a reach of 17 million people. So this is not your everyday trolling. They were coordinating and talking about what they would discuss for that particular day or week, what pictures they should disseminate. They were actively recruiting people, telling people how to create multiple accounts, how to use VPNs, virtual private networks, to hide the IP so they don't get suspended. It's insane.
What is it about Meghan Markle that has driven Prince Harry to not own every scenario? Who's the victim?
Is because she separated him from.
And it was done by people who were just not the typical quote-unquote trolls. These are housewives. These are middle-aged Caucasian women creating just constant attacks.
It's not just a tabloid. It's not just some story. You were making me scared. Right? And like that night, to be up and down in the middle of the night, looking down my hallway, like, are we safe? Are the doors locked? Is security on? Is everything? That's real. Are my babies safe? And you've created it for what? Because you're bored, or because it sells your papers? Or it makes you feel better about your own life? It's real what you're doing. And that's the piece I don't think people fully understand.
Thanks, you. Remember that what is transpiring in the media, what's being created, is an illusion. When you try to prove that you're good and that you're not the person they say you are, you're taking the bait. You're feeding the beast. It is an illusion. Your work is not to prove your goodness. You know who you are, both of you. And whenever you're ready to open your eyes.
As sad as it is, in order for change to happen, sometimes a lot of pain has to come to the surface. In order for us to be able to move to the next chapter, you've got to finish the first chapter.
Until that last week in the UK, I rarely wore color. And I never wanted to upstage or ruffle any feathers. So I just tried to blend in. But I wore a lot of color that week. Just felt like, well, let's just look like a rainbow.